Hello and welcome to the Northeast Ohio Media Group Debates. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mary Kilpatrick. Today we're hosting a debate for the North Royalton School Board race, up for election November 3rd. School Board members John Kelly and Ann Rykober could not attend. Challengers Heidi Dozel, Wayne S. LeClaire, and Benjamin Mott also could not attend. But we are here with current school board member Barbara Ann Droski, and I'll be interviewing her today about some of the issues that are pertinent to the school board. So welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself and kind of let people know why you're running.
Okay, I'm Barbara Ann Droski. This is going to be my third term. I've already run 8 years. I taught dental technologies, career and technical education for 36 years in the Parma City School District. As I was explaining to one of the news people here, my grandfather had the property where the Broadview Town Hall is, so I go back in time. We're the homesteaders. I was what was called, the last name was Weibel, and my grandmother's name was a Bee Hall. So half of Broadview Road was the Weibel farm of 100 acres, again where the Broadview Town Hall is now situated, and the other half of Broadview Road was the Bee Hall farm. So it's kind of nice to have history there, and as I was explaining to somebody, I think my mother had 33 in her graduating class at Brecksville, and Joe B. Hall, I'm not sure how many he had there, but he's still there, and he's been president of the North Royalton, not the historical, but the Alumni Association for the school district. So I do have history, which is, it's nice to have. And my husband was police chief there, so we go back quite I mean, he was police chief in the early 80s, throughout the 80s. So I've been in the city for 30 plus years at the same location, same residence. And I love the city. It's a great place. And I'm running for the schools because I'll be honest with you, some of the issues I had in Parma, I never want to see in North Royalton. And I'm really about accountability and making sure our tax dollars go into those classrooms and are utilized properly.
Absolutely. Well, to start off, I kind of want to ask you, I know accountability and being open and transparent is one of your big issues. Mm-hmm. How do you think North Royalton schools are doing with that, with letting the public know what's going on, and how would you hope to improve?
To be perfectly honest, I think Bianca Sidoti, the treasurer, has opened that up more so than our former treasurer. However, everything has changed with Josh Mandel's open checkbook, which I was an advocate of. In fact, when I received the information from Josh Mandel's office, I made a call like right away because I really believe in the transparency and the open checkbook. And I think we're doing pretty good. You know, it's hard to identify that because I'm not a CPA. I'm not in accounting, and I have to trust Mr. Sidoti for what he supplies us. So I got to be honest with you. That's where I'm at with that. As long as it's coming out and we're getting our regular accounts, financial reports, I'm satisfied with that. I just have to look it over, and it's sometimes difficult because, again, it's like if I had to teach you dentistry, my words would not make sense, and
sure.
For accounting, it's the same thing.
Right. So, along the same vein, with the numbers, North Royalton schools will gain about $1.1 million mm-hmm. in state funding over the next 2 years. Many neighboring school districts, including Strongsville
mm-hmm.
and Brecksville, mm-hmm. Broadview Heights, lost money. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about your opinion about the redistribution of state funds. Do you believe it was fair? And then how does North Royalton plan to spend the extra money?
I'm sure they're going to be, first of all, I'm sure the extra money is going to be looked at for building repairs. We are in dire need of building repairs. As for fairness, I will say, and I've done a lot of walking and talking to people in the community, and not relative to this, but I will say when we do talk, people recognize that Strongsville has a lot of industry and a lot of tax base coming from that. So does Brecksville and several other neighboring communities. North Royalton isn't really the same. Our funds come from property taxes and whatever levies or bonds that they're putting on. We just don't have that industrial tax base like others. So I'm comfortable that we were able to get those funds into our district.
Absolutely. Well, I know you mentioned building repairs. What buildings need work, and how does the district plan to get that done?
Well, they have a community engagement task force that they've put together to bring common people in. However, it has a lot of former teachers, and there's an administrator on there, and then it has a group that are residents. And they're trying to bring them together and discuss the needs and go in a direction to repair the buildings. I will tell you, they've got to get the roofs fixed. I know we've done some, and I did do some investigating on this. So what I found out is roofs replaced in 1987 and 1994 by capital bonds, they're deteriorating, and it was due to poor material selection. And the reason is they should have put hot asphalt and roofing paper on there, but they did single ply membranes, and single ply membranes only last 15 to 20 years.
And what buildings are we talking about?
Oh, you're talking the high school, Albion. They talk about the middle school. So even the middle school, they did the same thing. In 1995, the middle school was built, and it's needing repair. And these single ply membranes only last 15 to 20 years. So now we've got a lot of schools having difficulties, and we only have a 1 million PI. And the 1 million...
And explain to people what a PI is.
1 million permanent improvement. And you voted on this. The permanent improvement came in, I think it was in the late 2000s, around there. And what it is we automatically get 1 million every year from the taxes to go for needs of the buildings and that. However, as in the 2014 report, 500,000 of that money went to, let me see where that's at. Went to buses, purchasing buses. 200,000 of that went to interest and fiscal charges for the stadium replacement. So when we went ahead and built that stadium, they didn't have enough funds. They went and got these certificate of participation bonds. And those bonds have to be paid off. So we take 200,000 out of the permanent improvement, which was designated for buildings every year.
Was this year?
No, I was not on the board at the time that happened.
So basically, what you're saying is they didn't put the money that they needed to in the roofing in the past.
Right.
And the school district right now is having to
difficulties because now we're short, and they really have to figure out how to work within their budget because the last 4 bonds have not passed.
So how do you mentioned that the last 4 bonds haven't passed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got to get those kids to have a roof over their head.
They do.
Right.
And we did sell property off of Edgerton, and we had some other funds, and they did satisfy the needs in the high school and at Albion, which was the worst.
So how do you hope to rectify the situation?
Maybe they need to cut 10% across the board and put some of that money into the repairs, because the people in North Royalton, as I walk, are not happy. They are not happy with the stadium issue, and the reason they're not happy with the stadium issue is because they felt they didn't have a voice in it. What happened is we had a handicap issue, and we're fined and we're told that we had to repair or make accessibility for handicap, is my understanding, because again, I wasn't there, and I'm only trying to convey what I know. And so in that respect, I wrote everything down. What happened was in 2010, we had a $400,000 repair to the stadium, and the stadium was then updated to accept and work with handicapped individuals. In 2011, they went ahead and knocked the entire stadium down and rebuilt. But they knocked it down by going to the board and having the board vote that, okay, we're going to have to do this. And so they went ahead, and the board voted to go ahead and knock the stadium down and rebuild a whole new one. All right, but at the time, they felt that they were going to have enough donations to support that. And I really believe they did. I really believe they thought they would gather enough donations from people in the community and even outside the community to support the need of a new stadium. But that wasn't the case. So they ended up, the stadium cost $4.7 million approximately. And we had to get I think it's $3.2 million in certificate of participation bonds. But in order to pay them, you have to take the money out of the permanent improvement to pay them every year, which is
the permanent improvement tax,
right,
which the
right,
voters pay.
Right. And you also have a $2.8 million of interest to pay. So when you total it together, the stadium is actually costing, with the construction and the interest, $7.5 million approximate. And right now, to date, we owe $5.8 million, and it won't be paid off to 2040. Well, the problem is back when they first did it, it's my understanding, the donation thought was really going throughout the community. So everybody thought they'd never be assessed the cost, and they were really happy. And I have to say, did we need a stadium? Oh, yeah, I believe so. I taught at Normandy, and I would hear from the Normandy coaches that it was not a good stadium. They would cite all kinds of issues there. So it was an old stadium. The other thought, though, did we need to build, or could we have combined services with Brecksville or Strongsville to alleviate the cost? I don't think that was ever a thought. And I don't know if that was ever even looked into. So, but now we're beyond that. So we owe $5.8 million, and it goes to 2040. And again, citizens are not happy because they didn't get a voice in this at all. They're assessed with no voice. And you know, I think again, I wasn't there, so I don't know. I was off 2 years, so I don't know how. And that all happened while I was gone. And this is all I can supply you in that information.
So I know that you mentioned that a possible solution that you would have is cut
10% across the board and start fixing what we need in the buildings. If the bonds are not going to pass and people are, I mean, that's if they're not going to pass. The other thing is when the last one went on, it was like 28 million or something. And don't quote, I mean, I know I'm saying this on TV, but I don't have that in front of me. And I know they wanted to do a $1 million permanent improvement. But when you combined it for the total amount, it surpassed 50. And I don't have all those numbers in front of me. But I think if they were either to do a $1 million permanent improvement to add to the other one, or see if the public would accept a $25 million to get our needs and prioritize what we need. That's the other thing. You have to really prioritize. And even if you're putting a roof on, say, the middle school, you go, A, this is what it would be if we had no tear-offs, none of this, none of these other issues. B, if we had certain issues, this would it be. And C, at the extreme, this would, you know. So you prioritize exactly what the costs are, so you have that to supply to the public.
Right. So some of the options that you're suggesting, and none of these would, you know, be, you do them all, or, you know, you do one of them, you know, they're options, and obviously they're not on the table right now, but some of the options that you're suggesting are an additional permanent improvement tax.
Just that one.
Or a $25 million bond.
Right, individually. That's right.
Or cutting
10% across the board.
Right. So those are, you know, and you would obviously just pick one, but those are options that you believe the board needs to consider.
We need to look at some avenue because we're kind of, we're not moving forward on some of this. I mean, I think though, we did put this community engagement task force together to come back with information, and hopefully they're talking to residents like I have been talking to residents. I also had somebody talk to me about, yesterday as a matter of fact, he was very adamant that he is a business owner in the city, and he does not understand why the city and the schools do not combine, get together, and promote more business to bring in more industry and industrial, and have taxes coming from there or costs coming from there to support the schools. Thing is, I don't think that that's a school board kind of thing to do. I mean, we could possibly change the way things are done and do that. But I think the city, I advised him to go talk to the city, and because I really think that's the city to promote the businesses.
Sure.
And so that was another idea.
Sure, sure. Well, on another topic, I kind of want to ask you, what are you most proud of North Royalton schools?
Oh, geez, the education, easily done. Teachers are wonderful. Staff is wonderful. I really believe the kids get a really good education from the district. And I think most people will agree to that.
Right. And, I know that, you believe that it's a great education, and I know there's so much to offer there. But, if you could change anything, or if you could think of something that does need improvement within the education, what would that be?
The science labs, they need to be updated. Mm-hmm. It's that's one thing when I walk, I try to explain to people, because they'll go, well, why don't we just go back to the 5 basics, just the 5 basics. But you can't. This is a global market. They have to understand technology. That's another thing that needs to be looked at. Technology and science is huge. And if our kids are to compete, or even to compete to get into the better colleges or the higher end colleges and have opportunities there, they have to have that for themselves. And that's something that's a priority we should be looking at to supply for them. But again, it's and then the other thing too that needs to be understood, 74% of our residents have no children in the district. And we have an aging population, which is not unusual. I think it's all over. And 26 do. And as I was telling them yesterday, you got to get, the 26 have to work with the 74. They have to come to a happy medium to get everybody to support. Your kids, the children in our district depend on both, not just one. And then I had one resident say, well, no, we'll just get the 80 million and ask for 100 million, whatever the schools need. And because the district, your city is about your school district. People come to this city to go to these schools. And they're correct. However, if you make the taxes so high, people won't want to move in. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You're trying to promote one side, but then the other side, it isn't going to work, because people are also looking for a place where they're not paying exorbitant taxes. Excuse me.
Right. So North Royalton met 24 of the 24 standards of the Ohio the Ohio School Report Card last year. The school district also achieved an A in both the 4-year and 5-year graduation rate categories. What would you attribute that success to?
It just, again, good teachers, good education, and what I have to say, good parents with good kids. And it is. If you don't have kids that come for the right purposes and the right reasons and work within the system, and you don't have the parents supporting them, those kinds of things don't happen.
Right. Kind of along the same veins, about 92.7% of North Royalton third graders passed the state reading test last year. How can you get that number up to 100%?
Probably just working with them. And you know what? I taught 36 years. I'm going to tell you, every year is a different year. Every group is a different group. So you would have, like I had juniors and seniors in high school, and you would have a group that would come in and they were maybe the most difficult group, and you would go, oh my gosh, is the next group like that? And then another group would come in after them, after the seniors graduated and they moved up in my class, and I would still have issues trying to get these kids to be directed and focused on what they needed to do. But then the next group would be totally different. So it's not always what you're seeing in the test. It could be like a little bit of a what I want to say, generation gap. There could be a little bit of that. And I saw that when I taught.
Right. There's been a lot of shifting in the tests that Ohio students take.
You mean the park test?
Right, right.
Yeah, well, the park tests are gone.
Right. I kind of want to ask you, do you think teachers are under too much pressure to try to
absolutely,
teach to the test?
Absolutely. Because they take what they're getting in school and what they're teaching in school and the progress of their students, and then they're being evaluated. But it also depends on the group of students you get. Sometimes you have a lot of students that happen to get together in a group that aren't always focused and could cause, disruptions in the classroom. And so then that teacher's trying to control the disruptions, and teaching sometimes isn't always there. So things happened. They happen in these classrooms, and it's not necessarily always focused in on the teacher. I will tell you, in career and technical education, which I really liked, I had a final test that was at the state level. And I'm also on the state examining team for dental. And so what we would do, I would do, and I think my colleagues as well, you'd have an entrance test of what we were to teach for 2 years. And I could see who had what and progress. It was a way to do progress, to be honest with you. And then you had that entrance test, and then you worked with them for a whole year, and then into the senior year, I would give them an exit test. And I could see exactly what we progressed. And the last year I left, I'm proud to say, we had 100% passage of the state certification. So for me, that was a gauge I did for myself. I think if somehow that could be incorporated in the classes for the teacher themselves to see and gauge the progress, you might be able to eliminate all of that. And they could put that on an evaluation instead of all these state testings.
Right. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to address, any issues that you'd like to bring up, anything that we maybe didn't touch on that you would like people to be aware of.
Well, I had somebody else tell me, this is very interesting, that they don't feel superintendents should be hired through the boards anymore. They feel superintendents should be elected. And that a superintendent, if they are elected, then when things aren't going exactly the way they are, or if there's deficiencies like we are having, it lands into the superintendent, and the superintendent has to know how to adjust the finances and make ends meet. It's very difficult for a board, because I'm going to tell you, we meet once for a work session and once for a board meeting. I'm not there.
Once a month.
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you, once a month both. And so it's twice a month actually, unless we're called for special meetings. So I'm not there all month long, and it's hard because you can't remember. And these gentlemen, the treasurer and the assistant superintendent, they're there every day looking at these things every day. And I really think, I don't know if boards are doing everything that they can, because we're trying to get information from the public and redirect it to the superintendent. And a lot of times I try to get it to go straight to the superintendent, and it's just not always happening. People are reluctant to do that. And I think if you elected your superintendent, I think the responsibility, the accountability would really sit with them, just like you would with the mayor of the city.
So are you suggesting doing away with school boards and then just electing the superintendent?
I'm not, I didn't go that far.
Okay.
This gentleman was saying about electing the superintendent.
And is that something that you're in favor of?
I'd have to think about it more. I thought I'd bring it up here because it's an interesting concept. I do see more accountability on that individual and the public going to that individual, and like this money issue we're having now and not being able to repair buildings, maybe that would put, I should say, a little more pressure on that individual to know how to adjust the finances to satisfy the needs, instead of the board trying to convince them to do that. I'm not sure. I wanted to bring it up because it was something totally different I never had thought about. So I thought that was interesting. And I think term limits need to be on school boards. I don't think 20 and 30-year board members are healthy. I just don't. I think new ideas come from new people. So I'm really for term limits. I think 8 years is more than enough. I do. Even though I'm going again, I'm looking at a lot of things. I'm not satisfied with the end result with the bonds and what's happening. So I'm really planning to go through this, and this will be my last. I'm not planning to go back. So.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you?
No, I appreciate you
Well,
having me
yeah.
here. Thank
Well,
you. I hope I satisfied. I mean, it's
right.
I tried to bring information. Do I have it thoroughly here? Not really, but it's the best I could supply.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please also check out cleveland.com to read stories about the debates, issues, and candidates for the upcoming elections.